Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome back to our channel once again. And it is my hope and prayer that the video is going to find you guys in good health. Personally, I am fine. As you can see, Kisumu is fantastic. And maybe you could also let me know where you're watching the video from. The county or the country, in case you are out of the republic. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin this video by asking the team you are supporting. Are you team one term? Or are you team two term? Let me read your team in the comment below. But one thing I'm sure about is that team one term are actually the majority. Which means if elections were to be held in the Republic of Kenya today, majority of the people watching this video are likely to vote William Ruto out of office. But there's a question which I've always asked on this platform. Who can remove William Ruto from office? Because so far, we have several candidates who have expressed their interest. There is Kalonzo Musyoka. There is Martha Karua. Rigathi Gachagua has declared his interest. Fred Matiang'i has also declared his interest. Which name am I forgetting? Kalonzo I've mentioned. Then there is Omtata and David Maraga. I want to put Omtata and David Maraga as third force. But who can actually defeat William Ruto? Which takes me to the subject for today. The mistakes which the individuals have mentioned should actually avoid if they intend to defeat William Ruto in 2027. And it boils down to a secret. And that secret is the unity of the opposition. Can the opposition sit down and agree on a single presidential candidate to face off with William Ruto? Because tell me, for example, do you think if Kalonzo were to be on the ballot, Matiangi to be on the ballot, William Ruto to be on the ballot, do you think they will defeat William Ruto? Where will they get the votes from? It means one or two or all of them must swallow their pride and support one of them. And even by supporting one of them, they will have to agree to avoid the mistakes which I'm about to reveal. Before we do that, for those who are watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support. Because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you back to 2022. In 2022, the contest was clear. Raila Odinga versus William Ruto. And most people believed that Raila Odinga was actually going to win. Personally, I was 100% sure that Raila Odinga was going to win until the day, I remember so well, until the day Johnson Sakaja was cleared to run for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat. On that day, I asked myself several questions. That if Uhuru Kenyatta is serious that he's offering Raila Odinga the deep state, how come William Ruto was able to manipulate the deep state the way he manipulated? How come William Ruto was able to manipulate IBC to an extent that Sakaja was able to be cleared despite the fact that it was very clear he didn't have a degree to run for the gubernatorial seat? That day, I ruled out the possibility of Raila Odinga becoming the president. And I remember opining on this channel, and most of you guys hated me for that Raila Odinga should forget the presidency from that day. But let us not get into that. It simply means that Raila Odinga was so sure of winning the presidency, but he committed mistakes. Just like right now, if you are to take games of numbers, because politics is a game of numbers, if you are to take game of numbers, team one term has the numbers. But can those numbers translate into victory? Yes, but only if they were to avoid the following mistakes. The first mistake they must avoid is underestimating Ruto. Calling William Ruto one term is not enough. Raila Odinga was so sure that he had the deep state. He had a sitting president supporting him. Everything was on his favor, including the people. But they underestimated William Ruto's influence in the security sector. They underestimated that. Oburu was so sure that we now have the deep state, we have the people. What else?
We have won elections 3 times But every time we win the election, we are robbed of that victory. That victory is known to the whole country, but we never go to State House. Why have we not gone to State House when we have actually won the elections through votes? This is because there is something which we were missing. And that's something which we were missing is called system. Some people are saying system is not important, but system is very important. And now we are with Uhuru Kenyatta, who is holding the system. So if the system plus our votes, which are always more than the others, what else?
Moi was a Kalenjin. He was in power for 24 good years. Within that period, William Ruto also joined the government. William Ruto knew at one point he will need the presidency. So he made contacts with most of those security people from the Kalenjin nation. And that is why when Rigathi Gachagua is talking about a secret squad from Nandi, he might be right. Because William Ruto is protecting the presidency. Now, if William Ruto can go to that length, and Rigathi Gachagua is aware of that, what about forming a team specifically to ensure that 2027 goes the way they want? So they must come up with a strategy on how to deal with that deep state. So that's number one. The second mistake which they must avoid is the overconfidence. One of the reasons Raila Odinga lost was because of overconfidence. To an extent that his team was so sure that they were dismissive of anything. On this platform, I got a lot of information from people who are supportive of Raila Odinga. Some of them were working with IBC. Some of them were just seeing things happening in their areas. They would reach out to me because I made it very clear at that time that I was actually pro Raila Odinga. So they reached out to me. I had contact at the secretariat. Everybody at the secretariat was busy. They were sure. They used to tell me, Lee, you know, we are with Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta is the deep state. He has the intelligence that if what you are saying is true, there is no way they don't know about it. And I would agree with them that, of course, Uhuru is the president. You know, all these guys are with him. There's no information that we might have which the president might not have because he gets intelligence briefing every day. So they were so sure, overconfident. I can tell you, I'm watching Rigathi Gachagua. He has won the hearts and the admiration of the mountain. He's overconfident. His team are overconfident. Two things. There's the people and then there's the deep state. You might have the people. Raila had the people. He also thought he had the deep state. Okay, for Rigathi Gachagua and the team, they have the people, but they might not have the deep state, which makes it a bit different. But there are two aspects. The aspect of mobilization and the aspect of targeted campaigns. For Raila Odinga in the last election, he focused more on the mountain because he thought that the mountain was going to help him so much. Of course, we know what happened there. As much as they were rigging, the mountain really did not vote for Raila Odinga the way Raila Odinga had imagined. I want to tell Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Fred Matiang'i, who is my candidate, that their campaigns must be targeted. Must be targeted. They must know where the votes are and where the votes are not, so that they don't waste a lot of time. Like, for example, I'm looking at a situation where in 2027, there's likely to be high vote apathy in Nyanza, especially Luo Nyanza, and even the coastal region, because Raila Odinga might not be on the ballot. How are they going to deal with that? How is that going to work in their advantage or to their disadvantage? So overconfidence is something they must avoid. Even in that Mount Kenya, I can assure you, the people might want to remove Ruto. But if there's nothing which will motivate them to go and remove Ruto, they will not. Number 3, and I think this was the last nail on Raila Odinga's presidential coffin, the winning formation. I want to advise the team that they must agree early enough on the winning formation. In 2022, the biggest mistake was that Raila was the candidate. Fine. Raila had the people. Fine. But what was the winning formation? Raila Odinga opted for Martha Karua for 2 main reasons. Raila wanted a reform-oriented ticket to counter Ruto's, and he also wanted the women votes. At the end of the day, the women in Kenya never really voted for Raila Odinga because of Martha Karua. They voted maybe along tribal lines and other factors. Reform credentials did not work. Let me ask you a question. If Raila Odinga had picked on Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka as his running mate, do you think the outcome would have been different? For me, I've always believed that if Raila Odinga had picked Kalonzo, the outcome would have been different. Why? Because if you were to go back and check the voting patterns of the Ukambani, this time around they gave William Ruto votes, and apart from giving William Ruto votes, their turnout was a bit low. Why? Because Raila really mismanaged Kalonzo. He did not convince Kalonzo to support him. In fact, Kalonzo supported Raila Odinga because of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I also believe that, for example, if Munya was picked, the votes from Mount Kenya East would have been a bit higher. I believe so, because of course they were high compared to the Kikuyu nation, but they might have been higher. Martha Karua did not deliver votes to Raila. So they did not get the winning formation right. And add to the fact that because the moves came late, people like Mudavadi and Weta left, and they left at a very wrong point in time. And that's why Raila was unable to really manage, for example, Bungoma, which is attributed to William Ruto's win. So they must agree on a winning formation. If the candidate is Fred Matiang'i, the way personally I would love them to make it, pick Matiangi, then they must ensure that the running mate is someone who will be able to deliver the votes. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the 4th mistakes they must avoid, because it's also very important, allow me to take this opportunity to also introduce you guys to Kile Kitabu. Kile Kitabu is a digital debt tracker designed for small businesses. I know most of you guys are in business, and because of the state of economy, you normally grant credit to your customers and you put it down. So the best thing now you can do is to go to Play Store, download the Kile Kitabu and digitize that process, and you will thank me later. Ladies and gentlemen, the 4th mistake they must avoid: electoral strategy. Raila Odinga had a weak electoral strategy, where electoral strategy means how do you ensure that your people turn out to vote. For example, there's the allegation that Raila Odinga votes were actually stolen in the mountain. So which means the people of the mountain, some of them turned up to vote for Raila Odinga. And indeed, they woke up, went to the polling station and voted for Raila Odinga. Then what happens after that? Vote protection. How do you ensure that you have a proper vote protection mechanism so that you don't come up with this story, oh, niliibiwa. The advantage of team one term is that they have Rigathi, a former DO, understand some of these operations. But the most important thing is that they must prepare for the worst. I've seen Kalonzo Musyoka say, oh, Ruto is planning to rig elections. What if he rigs? Because that's the worst case scenario. Like Raila Odinga failed to come up with that worst case scenario that, okay, there's a possibility that William Ruto is going to rig. What if he rigs? What happens? So they must come up with the worst case scenario. What happens if he rigs? And lastly, maybe this is not the last one: infiltration. Raila Odinga's camp was infiltrated badly, to an extent that the top decision-making organs of Raila Odinga was infiltrated. Someone like Monica Juma, who was seconded by Uhuru Kenyatta, was working for Ruto. And she was sitting in almost all, according to sources, meetings. Which means William Ruto was getting each and everything Raila Odinga was planning. And I know most of you guys used to wonder, I used to wonder on this platform, how Dennis Itumbi used to get a lot of information. Kumbe, they were infiltrated. Recently, just recently here, Matiangi came back into the country. I'm 100% sure that maybe his team was infiltrated. Let me now take you to Wamunyoro. Just the other day, you saw Wambugu Ngunjiri being kicked out from Rigathi Gachagua's camp. Why? Because he had managed to infiltrate the camp. Whether he was working for Uhuru or Ruto, I still don't know. But I'm seeing him back to Uhuru's corner. I'm even not sure whether he'll be doing the same for Uhuru. So infiltration is dangerous, which takes me to my last point, messaging. The truth of the matter is that majority of the people who will be voting in 2027 are young people. In the last election, Raila Odinga and his messaging were actually outdated. Raila Odinga was still talking of the things they used to do in 1992. The young people were not understanding. When Raila Odinga was talking like that, they were in quiver dancing. They were in Club The Place here dancing. They were all over. The young people dancing. Raila Odinga and the team did not really figure out how do we reach out to those young people. Ruto reached out to them by promising them jobs, promising them a lot of things, which failed. Because remember, we have the Gen Zs. And these Gen Z people, they're smart. You can't just play with them. How do you win their hearts? Is it by one term alone, or what strategy? Otherwise, if you don't do that, they'll rally themselves, vote for a candidate. That candidate will spoil the party. I don't know what to think, but that's my take. Until next time, this is Lee Makwiny. Bye-bye.